I'm going to unclip it. Ooh, steaming hot.
Well done.
I've just drizzled a little olive oil at the very top.
Ooh, yum.
Buongiorno and benvenuti to Tortellino time. Today I will be doing ditaloni or ditalini in a pasta bake with pork ragu. The reason why I'm saying ditaloni or ditalini is because I still not decided what sort of pasta I'm using, but I'll show it to you. This is a ditalone here and this is a ditalini. I will wait until we are closer to the time, and depending on the inspiration I will decide. The recipe for the pork ragu is something which actually I've made before on the channel, and they can be adapted to any pasta. And actually it is a recipe which was taught to me by a guy who has a restaurant in Sicily, and he does the most amazing pork ragu, and I asked and he shared it with me. Not only, but being a little bit cheeky, I also asked him if it would be possible for me to do a little video next time I'm in Sicily in his restaurant. He has agreed. So next time I go to Sicily, I will be going to see Giovanni, who has a restaurant in Santa Ninfa in Sicily, and I will be filming with him, and hopefully he'll let me do some cooking in his kitchen. And as you will have figured it out, I'm making the Soffritto, which is the base of a lot of Italian pasta sauces in Italy. I've already chopped a carrot in very small pieces, also done a piece of celery, and I'm now chopping again in very small pieces an onion. Also I will be crushing a couple of large cloves of garlic. This recipe heavily relies on the flavour released by the garlic. A little olive oil in a saucepan, and I'll start with the garlic so that it starts sizzling on its own. And you might have noticed from a lot of my cooking videos that whenever I make a soffritto and I use garlic, I always start with the garlic, always with cold oil. That is because as the garlic heats up in the hot oil, will releases a lot more flavour. But do not leave it there for very long, literally about 30 seconds, otherwise it will burn. And I can add the rest of my soffritto now. Temperature is medium-high, and leave everything to sizzle for about 4 to 5 minutes until the onions and the carrots have slightly softened up. This is pork loin, and I'm actually cutting it into little strips first, and then 1 centimeter cube. You can use any meat you like. It doesn't even need to be pork. It can also be pork ribs if you wish, or it can be mince, pork mince, or beef mince, or a combination of both. Entirely up to you. Today I'm using pork loin, and the spices I will be marrying it with will be very relevant to this recipe, of course. Vegetables have softened up a little, and I can add the pork next. And I'll mix everything together until the pork is beautiful and brown. And if you take a look, after 5 minutes all of the pork has changed in color, and also the bottom, a lot of the water released from the pork has evaporated, and I'm going to add now half a glass of dry white wine. And I'll turn the temperature up, and if you can see me through the steam, I will wait until the alcohol from the wine evaporates. And that is perfect. I can no longer smell any wine, and I can add the teaspoon of tomato puree. I think I'm going to have to move the camera. I can't see anything. There, hopefully that's a little bit better. I mentioned spices earlier, and what goes really well with this pork ragu is fennel, which is a very typical spice used in Sicily with pork products, especially sausages. And I'm going to put a good level teaspoon in there. Fennel seeds, that is, of course. Followed by a tiny little amount of chili flakes. And to make this really Italian, of course, a little oregano. Followed by some tomato passata. I'm putting in half a liter. But all of the ingredients and measurements, as always, will be in the description, and also in a separate PDF file which you can download or print if you wish. I just give the carton of my tomato passata a little rinse with some water, which is also partly why I've added some tomato puree, because I will want this to be quite thick as far as sauce goes, so I want to make sure that it doesn't tend to be too liquidy. And before I put the lid on and leave it to simmer, I'm going to add a little salt, and of course some pepper also. And I'll mix everything together. It's beginning to boil already, so I'll place the lid on, and I will leave it to simmer now. I'll turn it down for a good 30 minutes. If you were to do this with mince, pork mince or beef mince or combination of both, 20 minutes will be enough. Because I've done little chunks of pork, the extra 10 minutes will make sure that they become lovely and tender. In the meantime, I can start working on some of my fillings, and this is 1 aubergine or eggplant, and I'm slicing it in about 1 centimeter pieces. Hot griddle, no need to add any oil, salt, pepper, just as it is, just place the aubergine inside it. Give them a good push to ensure that they are touching the base of your griddle, and they will take approximately 5 minutes per side to cook. And after 5 minutes you can turn them around. Make sure that if you do eggplants like this, you stay on top of them, they can easily burn. And here they are, after a total of 10 minutes, my aubergine slices are totally cooked, and I'm now slicing them in little strips. And while they're still hot, don't worry, move them into a little bowl. And I'm going to add a little olive oil, pinch of salt and a little pepper. And whilst they're hot, I'll add also a clove of garlic, but this time I will be crushing it using my garlic crusher. And because they're hot, the garlic will blend beautifully with the eggplants and will release an amazing flavor, but also it will marinate. And I mentioned this before when I cooked actually something similar, a spaghetti pie, and you can actually eat this as it is, as a side dish. Absolutely delicious. But as tempted as I am, I'm not going to eat it as a side dish. I will put it on one side, and it will cool down and it will continue to marinate. Now, if you watched any of my other videos, you will have seen me making Béchamel sauce, so you might be an expert by now. So by all means, I won't take any offense. Skip to the next chapter if you like. But you might be new to the channel, and this is the first video you're seeing. So I'm going to show you how to make Béchamel sauce. I'll go 400 milliliters of semi-skimmed milk, and I'm going to add 40 grams of plain flour. Effectively, for every 100 milliliters of milk is 10 grams of flour. So if you're making more or if you're making less, you can adjust it accordingly. The milk is cold, by the way, so do not worry. Add a pinch of salt and a little pepper, of course. This is nutmeg, which is already grated, and I'm gonna add a good amount, maybe a quarter of a teaspoon. Nutmeg is a typical spice used in Béchamel sauce, but if you do not like it or you're not too keen, don't put it in. And whilst everything is still cold, mix everything together, and you will see that most of the flour will be absorbed by the milk, and I'll finish it off on the hob. And there you go, my saucepan is on the hob, and I'll add the milk first, and I'll turn it on maximum power to start with. And I'll continue mixing it until it starts getting denser and denser, and there'll be a little steam coming up. At that point I will be turning the heat down. There we go, look, I'm not sure if you can see, but some steam is coming up, so I'll turn the temperature down now to medium high, and I'll continue mixing. But also, if you look, all of the flour is gone, so that's not a problem at all. And look, in less than 2 minutes I've thickened up, and it's almost ready. But what I'll do, I'll mix it for a further 20 seconds while it's still on the hob. Then I'll lift my saucepan and I'll mix it for another 20 seconds, but this time it's no longer on the hob. And there it is, look, it's ready, and in less than 3 minutes I've got a beautiful cheese sauce or Béchamel sauce, or whatever you might call it, and it's ready. And I'm getting quite close now to get the pasta on, so decision time soon. Do I go for Ditalini or Ditaloni? But before I do that, I'll crack a couple of eggs in a bowl. I'll quickly whisk them with a fork. This is pecorino cheese, which I just grated. You can also use Parmesan cheese, it doesn't really matter, entirely up to you, choices. And I just melted 10 grams of butter in the microwave. I'm not going to add any salt, as the pecorino is quite salty, but I will add a little pepper. And I'm ready for the pasta. I have decided to go for the Ditaloni today, the big ones, rather than the Ditalini, for the simplest reason that I'll go more Ditaloni in the Ditalini, and I still got options in future. By the way, in case you're wondering, Ditaloni is a derivative from fingers, and the word for fingers in Italian is dita, so you can see why big ones are called Ditaloni. I suspect the idea is that they go the shape of a finger, so maybe a big finger, and Ditalini is a little finger. Also, ditale is what you use for sewing. You know that little metal cap thing you put on, I never used it, well I might have used it once or twice in the past to push the needle. That's called a ditale, again a very very similar word. So there you got the little Italian lesson thrown in a cooking recipe. My water is boiling, and I've been putting quite a bit of salt everywhere else, so I'm not going to bother with salt this time, and I'll add my pasta. You can cook any type of pasta with this recipe. Ironically, when I made it before, I used spaghetti, so you can use spaghetti, linguine, or any short pasta. If you look at the spaghetti bake video I made, I don't know, 7-8 months ago, I actually used mince at the time. It was a combination of pork and mince, but also I didn't use Béchamel sauce, I used ricotta. So you've got many variables, entirely up to you how you wish to mix and match, but it's the beauty of cooking, of course. You can do anything you like in your own kitchen. Based on the instructions on the packaging, the amount of cooking time required for the Ditaloni is 8 minutes. So I'm going to be cooking them for half the amount of time, 4 minutes. So depending on what type of pasta you are using, look at the cooking time, if it's 12, 6 and so on. Do not cook it all the way because this will finish cooking in the oven, of course. In the meantime, my sauce is ready, and if you look, actually has shrunk considerably, maybe a little bit more than what I want. I'm now pinching a little bit of my starchy water to make it a little bit more liquidy, so that's much better. And I'm now adding a good handful of parsley, which I keep in the freezer. And I'll mix it all in, and I'll put the lid back on, and I will leave it to infuse so that the parsley releases all of the lovely flavours. And after 4 minutes, my pasta is nowhere near cooked, which is what I wanted, but I'll start moving it in the bowl with the egg and the cheese. This is a very similar process to when you make carbonara, the difference being that when you make carbonara the pasta is nearly cooked. This isn't, of course. And I'll mix everything together so that the egg and the cheese will bond together with the pasta. Today we'll be using one of those baking tins which has got a little clip here, and at the bottom is also detachable. You can use any oven dish, you do not have to use a baking tin. I'm using this because I will eventually remove the bottom, and it will be beautiful all around and hopefully good to look at as well. But before I put the pasta in, I'll put a little knob of butter there. And using some kitchen paper, I'll spread it across the base of my baking tin. I'll turn it around and ensure that all of the sides are also greased. These are breadcrumbs. I'm going to sprinkle a little at the base of my tin. And I've given it a good shake, and also I have made sure that I've turned it around so that the sides of my tin are also covered in breadcrumbs. I've done this for two reasons. Number one, because the layer of breadcrumbs and butter will prevent the pasta from sticking to the tin. But also, once the pasta cooks, the breadcrumbs will become lovely and golden, and by the time I remove the tin, hopefully it will be lovely and crusty. But any excess breadcrumbs, just put them back in your container. And having greased the tin, I can add the pasta next. Using a spoon, I'm pressing it down, and I'm leaving one layer of pasta at the bottom to form the base, and the rest I'm pushing it towards the edges so that I can build them up. And do not worry, this hasn't got to be perfect, because you can see that it keeps coming down. As when I will put the rest of the ingredients in, then they will push the pasta towards the edges anyway. Let's see if it works. So I'll start with a little sauce at the bottom. And I'm using the pork as a way to bank it up so that it pushes the pasta towards the edges. So half of my sauce is in, and I'll stop for a moment. And back to my marinated eggplants, which have totally cooled down by now. So I'll add them next to the middle here. And as the pasta is beginning to cool down, it is easier for me to not go in with my hands and start pushing it towards the edges so that I get that final effect I'm looking for. I will have the Béchamel sauce going on the top eventually, but on the cheese front I will also be adding a little cheddar now, so just a few slices. This is extra mature cheddar, so it's quite strong in flavour. And I'm going to offset the strength of the cheddar with some mild fresh mozzarella, which I've just sliced. And I can go back now and put the rest of my sauce on top. Quantity wise, this is perfect. Look, it's all gone. And now that I've reached the top, I'm happy that I can put some of my pasta sauce on top of the edges so that some of the sauce will filter down with the pasta. And next is my Bechamel sauce, so that can go on the very top. And I'm now ensuring that I spread it all over the surface of my beautiful pasta bake. And I'm nearly there, but just before I finish, one last sprinkle of dried breadcrumbs, just a little, don't go mad. These are there because they will absorb a little bit of the liquid, but also they'll turn into this beautiful golden color, and they will be lovely and crusty. Now, I work in finance, and my old boss used to say to me that in this business, presentation is everything. And I have to agree with him. It is very important. However, I have extended that lesson in the kitchen. So this is obviously very, very optional, but I am doing a little bit of cosmetics on top of my pasta bake, and I'm putting a few tomatoes, an olive in the middle. I'm getting very creative. I've sliced a few olives and I'm putting them all around like this. And I've gone along and added a few more pieces of tomato, extending the middle part like this. Looks good. I like it. And I'm done with the preparation, and it is now ready to go in the oven. I will treat this very much like a lasagna. I will cover it with some tin foil, and I'll pop it in for a total of 35 minutes, temperature 180 degrees, fan assisted. If you've got a normal conventional oven, just up the temperature by 10 degrees to 190. And after 20 minutes, I will remove the tin foil and I will finish cooking it without the tin foil, and they'll become lovely and brown. So I'll see you in about 45 minutes or so. See you soon. And my pasta bake has been out of the oven now for a good 10 minutes. Of course, Julie has joined me. Hello, Julie.
Hello.
And I mentioned earlier, by the way, about presentation. Can you see that I've made it like a finance report?
Wow. I don't know about that. You're the only finance person I know who can't count, but there we are. That's
Oh, right.
his calculations of things when we're out at restaurants splitting a bill is diabolical, but there we are.
My presentation looks good.
Presentation is beautiful.
By the way, what I've done to ensure that I didn't make a mess in my oven, oh, it's not too bad actually, I put this tray underneath, and actually it hasn't leaked much, but if you do something similar where you're using a cake tin like this, you might want to put it in a tray or maybe some tin foil underneath. And as it has been resting for 10 minutes or so, it should be easy for me to now remove the tin without making a mess.
Fingers crossed. Gosh, it's chock-a-block full, isn't it? I haven't even had any breakfast. This is going to be lovely. Are we eating it now, or have I got to wait till later?
You only just arrived.
Perhaps I can have it for lunch and tea. Yeah. I walked in the door and the whole house smelled delicious.
Yes, especially after she asked me to remove some manure that she bought from the car. So this is
No, the car stinks of bags of manure, but there we are.
contrasting smells. It has cooled down, so it's not too bad. I can lift it safely. Let's take a look. Very gently, I'm going to unclip it so that it retains its shape.
Fingers crossed, how are we doing?
Fingers crossed. I'll give it a little wiggle first so that it is free, and very, very slowly I'll move it up.
Ooh.
Steaming hot.
Well done. Wow, look at that. Held its shape lovely, hasn't it?
Wow, it looks really good. I'm
Oh,
very
I like the
pleased.
tubes that are out on the outside. Look right here, look, there's some tubes you can see.
Oh, she seems to be surprised as if somebody made it. Oh, look at this, she's saying.
Sorry.
And before I go any further, I'll just drizzle a little olive oil at the very, very top, like so. And time to cut one slice. And I recommend that if you do anything like this, you use a steak knife. And I'm very pleased with the consistency. I didn't make the sauce too thick, and it's actually holding the pasta bake very, very well. Go in a few times with your knife to ensure that you properly cut, otherwise you'll end up dragging a lot of the pasta out.
Not like these bits, you mean?
Yes. But I've actually left the metal plate underneath, so before actually I remove it, I'll go and dislodge it so that I don't make a mess.
Hopefully.
Have some faith in me.
Always.
Spatula doesn't have to be as beautiful as this, but any spatula will do. Make sure it's big enough, of course. And off we go. And very, very carefully, I'll remove it.
Let's have a look. Ooh, yum.
Let's have a look. Oh, yeah. Let's get this spatula out of the way. And let me show you, because I realized when I edit videos that I'm so busy tasting that I never show you the inside of food. So there it is, look. You can see the extra layer we've made with the eggplant, which is here, and the pasta, looking beautiful. The smell is really good. And as they say, if it smells good, the likelihood is that it will taste good. So let's try some. The pork is lovely and tender, and Julie is munching through already. She's supposed to be videoing
Sorry,
while
I'm
I'm
just trying
talking.
these.
She's eating. It's terrible. But well said, the pork is lovely and tender, and the fennel, absolutely bang on. If you like fennel, put it in.
Yeah.
I might not be good at numbers as an accountant. Actually, I'm a finance director. I do this as a hobby. But I think I can make a good pasta bake. Arrivederci, make it and have fun if you make it. And if you make it this shape, you would definitely enjoy it. Ciao and buon appetito. Thank you.